he saw a child. I remember laying there frozen stiff. The kind of grief and pain and rage.
As 2020 comes on the air tonight,
the new fallout. The former gymnastics doctor just sentenced behind bars for life.
Today, my monster is gone.
The tidal wave of survivors, including these Olympic all-stars who say they were horrifically abused by the god doctor of gymnastics.
I had to hear what he did to them. Knowing that he did the same thing to me breaks my heart.
Our cross-country investigation.
Tonight, the entire board of USA Gymnastics announcing they will resign.
The very latest from Ground Zero in Lansing.
If somebody had listened to you, most of these women here would never have been abused.
How did his reign of terror go unchecked for more than 20 years?
When girls came forward and told an adult, the adults didn't listen.
Was there a code of silence just to keep the medals coming?
All these people knew what he was doing?
Yes.
Tonight, we're taking you inside the closed-off elite world of women's gymnastics.
Your parents aren't allowed in the gym. They cannot step foot in the gym. That was the rule.
The warning signs to protect yours from abuse. And those brave women who broke their silence.
Well, Larry, I'm here. Not to tell someone, but to tell everyone.
I'm David Muir.
And I'm Elizabeth Vargas, and this is 2020.
Well, when I was little, I always wanted to be in the Olympics. I wanted to be a collegiate athlete, become a sports medicine doctor. My dreams were definitely derailed after seeing him. I feel like part of me has been robbed.
This week in Lansing, Michigan, 19 young women boarding a bus for the 20-mile journey from a courthouse to a community college.
It's a different address. You want them to come in down this side?
Where our 2020 crew and cameras awaited them.
Jennifer, Morgan.
But that's nothing compared to the journey they've been on for years, coming to terms with the abuse they say they endured.
Hello, ladies.
They've come here to tell you their story, a story they say they couldn't tell for so long.
I have to say, as I sit here and look at the group of you, it's unbelievable to me that every single one of you was a victim of Larry Nassar, and you're just a drop in the bucket.
Yes.
For so many years, you might have thought you were the only one. Look who's next to you. You weren't. It's overwhelming. It didn't have to be this way. It's both incredibly comforting, but also incredibly horrifying as to how many of us there are.
Their tormentor, Larry Nassar,
Hopefully this will be an educational experience.
the once revered former team doctor for American gymnastics, a man from whom they sought care and comfort, and instead suffered the cruelest form of betrayal and degradation. His fate sealed earlier this week as Judge Rosemary Aquilina made certain he would never see freedom again.
I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I've just signed your death warrant.
So how does it feel knowing that man will never, ever step outside prison again while he's alive?
Yeah, I'm grateful, but it feels very incomplete. I don't think it really represents the pain and all of the emotions that all of us have gone through and all the other women out there.
Everyone tell me how old you were when Larry Nassar first abused you.
12, 8, 12, 18, 20, 16, 14.
So I heard a 20, so that's the oldest. I heard a 7. 7?
Yep, at one point my coach was even in the room with me.
Your coach was even in the room with you?
Yeah, yep.
How many of you suffered from anxiety as a result of what happened to you? Panic attacks? Depression? What a legacy for pursuing what was your dream.
Now we have a new dream.
What's the new dream?
Change the world.
The courageous women we met were among the 156 who took turns giving those searing victim impact statements at sentencing,
And I've experienced flashback nightmares.
one after the other.
Touching us in a sexual experience by kindergarten.
The anguish,
I'm scared every day.
the anger,
How much I hate you.
lasting more than 7 extraordinary days.
And now you're the world's #1 child molesting pedophile
some with very familiar faces and names. Olympic gold medalist Aly Raisman.
The worst epidemic of sexual abuse in the history of sports.
And others she called an army of survivors, bravely shedding their anonymity in unprecedented numbers. Their parents wiping away tears, still haunted and bewildered by the assaults that went unnoticed, sometimes with them in the room.
And she said, Mom, he put his fingers in me, and they weren't gloved. And I said, Chelsea, I was right there in the room. And she goes, you couldn't see what was going on, Mom. And she said, he hurt me.
I willingly took my most precious gift in this world to you, and you hurt her. And she was only 8. I cannot help but think, how did I miss the red flags?
For every sister survivor who testified in court, there is a story of a little girl with a dream and a love of a sport. Like Akemi Look, she was immediately dazzled by rhythmic gymnastics watching the 1996 Olympics.
I was 10 years old and I was riveted. I was on the edge of my seat as a little girl because, you see these beautiful streamers flying up in the air, and it's such a graceful sport, and they throw their equipment up 30-something feet into the air and then catch it, and it's like magic. And I said to my mom, I want to do this.
Maddie Larson's love for gymnastics began when she was just 2 years old.
Surprisingly, I could pretty much almost do all the things the 6-year-olds could do at 2, and it was like I found my calling at 2 years old.
You're one of those kids with the magic pixie dust.
Yeah,
it all came
so easy to me, and that's what I loved about it.
Lindsay Lemke was 6 when the gymnastics bug bit her.
The higher level I got and the more accolades I had, the more confidence I had in myself, and that was kind of something I wanted to pursue.
All 3 girls rapidly ascended the ranks, becoming elite gymnasts. How quickly did coaches around you know that you were something special?
It was pretty quick. My parents told me that all the coaches that we tried, she has it. She could go all the way.
They were saying this before you were 7 years old?
Yeah.
Was there a particular event that was your specialty?
Floor was my favorite, and I think it kind of showed because I lit up when I did floor.
With the dreams came grueling commitment.
I gave up everything. I was always in the gym practicing. I wanted to make the Olympics.
It's a life that is very different from the normal high school girl's life. There's so much competition and so much loneliness and so much isolation. You're training most of the day. It's incredibly cutthroat.
And hand in hand with nonstop training, there were frequent injuries.
And I was at practice, and I did a 2.5 twist, and I landed on my ankle, and it rolled out, and then I heard a crack. I had broken my foot. I had shin splints. I had knee pain. I was in splits, and I couldn't lift my leg off the ground. It was just the sharpest pain. I just cried and cried and cried.
And with those injuries came treatment.
And the coach said, you need to go see the team doctor.
Yeah.
He'll make you better.
Yeah.
Little did they know, they say, there was no cure in sight.
You're the Olympic doctor.
Yes. It was like, wow, I'm lucky. I just hurt my foot, and he's already fitting me in his schedule. I remember being told that he was the national team doctor and that I was in good hands and he knows what he's doing.
Stay with us.
My first thoughts of Larry Nassar is that he was a gregarious, kind, thoughtful person.
Very competent, very caring, very warm and engaging. He was charismatic. I was enamored by him. Everyone was.
Olympian Carrie Strug vaulted into history and our hearts with her bravery at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics.
Carrie Strug is hurt. She is hurt badly.
Brought to her knees by injury, but winning a gold medal for her team. There was another ring star sharing iconic moment, the man on the right helping to support her, team doctor Larry Nassar.
He was seen as a man who was the best at what he did. So good that USA Gymnastics wanted him at the Olympics. They wanted him to be the one person on earth who would be treating their top athletes.
This was a guy who taught religious school at a local church. He volunteered as the team doctor for the whole high school there.
Nassar rubbed shoulders with gymnastics royalty Bella and Marta Karolyi.
With U.S. Gymnastics, it's basically all about the Karolyis. And to have the Karolyis' trust means everything in gymnastics.
The Karolyis Texas training camp was well known in gymnastics circles for its grueling boot camp atmosphere. When Dr. Nassar worked at the camp, the girls say he was a rare, friendly face, plying them with candy and kindness.
He was nice. I mean, he was kind. He was caring.
Lindsay Lemke met Larry Nassar at Twistars gym. Her parents became close family friends with the doctor and his wife. He began treating her for back pain when she was in middle school.
Hello and welcome to GymnasticsDoctor.com.
Dr. Nassar liked to show off his techniques, posting videos he called tender teaching moments on his website. There are legitimate treatments that require doctors to touch intimate areas, and Dr. Nassar took advantage of that, going beyond medical necessity for his own perverse pleasure. Lindsay says when she was 12, Nassar's procedures and his fingers suddenly became invasive.
And then he went inside of me, and I was like, this isn't the same thing.
Was he talking to you during this?
Yeah, normal conversations.
As a young person, much less a child, the thought that a doctor could be using you for his own sexual gratification is something that doesn't even enter your mind.
I mean, I went over to his house around 4 days a week for years.
You went to his house to get these treatments?
Yes, in his basement.
Didn't you think that was a little weird?
No, because he was our friend.
Did his behavior ever become odd during these so-called treatments?
The thing that gets me every time I look back about it is his eyes were always closed.
And never did you think this was anything other than a real medical procedure?
Correct.
Because he told you so?
Correct. You trusted Larry.
Did it help your back injury?
No. My back never got better until I stopped seeing Larry.
Nassar's victims say they were uniquely vulnerable. They were in pain from injuries. They were told Dr. Nassar was the only one who could heal them. As top athletes, they were used to taking orders. They were programmed for obedience.
So they wanted robots, and it was survival of the fittest, and if you didn't survive, then see you later. You're not on the team.
Akemi Look was a rhythmic gymnast. She says she was seen by Dr. Nassar several times with no issues until one appointment when she was 15.
And then he says to me, okay, I'm just going to make an adjustment. I might be a little bit uncomfortable. The next thing I know, I feel his fingers pressing up inside my vagina. I remember my face getting really hot and being so confused about why he was touching me there. I buried my head in the table and just prayed for it to be over.
She told no one.
I felt so violated and so embarrassed that someone had touched me there. I had to justify it to myself by saying that he was trying to heal me.
It wasn't just the girls who were fooled by Nassar's treatments. The sports medicine community viewed him as an authority in the field. Nassar even contributed a chapter to this medical textbook, complete with a cringe-worthy photo of what the author says are Nassar's hands on a girl's bottom. In the text, Nassar encourages other doctors to touch what he calls the no-fly zone, the area around the genitals.
I didn't say anything to anybody.
Maddie Larson says the first time she can distinctly remember Nassar abusing her was at what should have been one of the highlights of her life as an athlete, her first U.S. national championship. He was supposed to be treating her for a painful hip injury.
So what did he do to you that day?
Asked me questions about the pain in my hip, and then he put his fingers in my vagina and was asking me, does that feel better?
Larson says no matter where the injury, the supposed treatment was often similar.
Even though I didn't know I was being molested, I was uncomfortable, but I didn't think it was wrong because I didn't like a lot of things about gymnastics. You just do what you're told and you don't say anything. A part of me is still trying to forgive myself for being so naive.
There's nothing to forgive.
I know. I just want to, wish I could be me and go back in time and talk to me at that age.
What would you say?
I would just hug me. I would just hug me and say, it's going to be okay. And talk to someone.
Tell someone. Well, you're telling people now.
She's telling, and so was the brave woman who first broke the silence about Dr. Nassar's terrible treatments, and other women finally realized they are not alone.
Show of hands, do you all agree with her that it numbers in the thousands?
Stay with us.
I didn't really feel like I could talk to many people for a very long time.
We're conditioned not to speak up. If something hurts, don't speak up. If someone's screaming at you, don't speak up.
He was the Olympic doctor, so he must be doing this, to other girls, and nobody has said anything, so something must be wrong with me thinking that it was wrong.
When I first found out when the Indy Star article came out, I honestly was in denial. My parents told me that he had been arrested. I immediately knew, and my entire world came crashing down.
This group will make a name for themselves tonight.
It's the summer of 2016, and America is celebrating the success of the Final Five, the gold medal-winning USA women's gymnastics team. She delivered, where she dominated the Rio Olympic Games, led by Simone Biles and veterans Gabby Douglas and Aly Raisman.
That's what an Olympic champion looks like.
But 5,000 miles away in a dusty newsroom, 3 reporters for the Indianapolis Star publish an investigative report on the ugly side of this beautiful sport.
USA Gymnastics wasn't always reporting allegations of sexual abuse that it was receiving. The day after that story was published, Rachel Denhollander reached out to us and told us about Dr. Nassar, and that's the first we knew of him.
It was just after my 15th birthday. I saw him for approximately a year, and he abused me between 10 and 13 times during that time frame. He penetrated me vaginally and anally.
That was back in 2000, when Rachel Denhollander was a club-level gymnast.
Why did you decide to find? Did you think that maybe now people will believe me that this door's been cracked open by this fantastic journalism in the Indianapolis Star?
Yeah, I was very aware of the societal dynamics surrounding abuse. I was confident that there were thousands of victims out there.
Of Larry?
Absolutely.
Thousands.
Yes.
Show of hands. Do you all agree with her that it numbers in the thousands? Astonishing.
Dr. Nassar is a prominent and revered doctor in gymnastics, so reporter Tim Evans pays him a visit.
When he first got there, he was basically pleading that we not write a story, that this was a misunderstanding, and he wanted to show me some videos to defend what he was doing. And in those situations, when he was kind of controlling the narrative, he was much more confident, arrogant.
Throughout the interview, Evans says Larry Nassar maintained his innocence, denying ever doing anything untoward to any patient. And when the Indy Star's bombshell report comes out detailing the accusations by Rachel and another former gymnast,
the floodgates opened. Within hours, we had women calling. The tip line that was sent out by the end of the day, we had 12 other survivors who had come forward, and it's grown from there. We have over 160 now.
My immediate reaction was, I can believe that, because it happened to me.
I called the police department immediately and said I need to file a report.
As Michigan authorities began to investigate, Michigan State University feels the pressure and fires Larry Nassar. Then, 2 months later,
Criminal charges against Dr. Larry Nassar for his predatory, menacing, criminal acts involving a minor.
First, it started out with 3 charges of criminal sexual conduct. Then it became around 10. As this investigation kept going month after month, it then became 20. You just saw the number grow and grow and grow.
Dr. Larry Nassar appearing in court via video conference, looking like a shell of his former self.
Mr. Nassar, do you understand what the charges are against you, sir?
Dr. Nassar's wife supports him 100%. In fact, there are hundreds of people that support him 100%.
Larry Nassar was arrested and brought into the Ingham County Jail this afternoon.
Watching on the news, a Kemi look, learning her former doctor was arrested.
My heart dropped into my stomach, and my boyfriend was next to me, and I just broke. I just completely broke down because I knew that the thing that I never wanted to be true was true. The thing that I pushed away, the thing that haunted me every step of my adult life.
Tell me about the moment Larry was arrested, how that felt for you, knowing especially because that was as a result of the action that you took.
I was incredibly grateful when that step was taken. It really wasn't a time I felt like to rejoice yet.
As the number of accusers begins to mount, Larry Nassar's friendly facade crumbles when police make a startling discovery in his trash can. 4 computer hard drives.
And on those hard drives are 37,000 videos, pictures of children, girls, engaging in different acts, some as young as 6 and 7 years old.
Among the thousands of files on the drives, disturbing home videos of Dr. Nassar.
He had a pool party with a couple of young girls, and at that pool party, he was seen digitally penetrating some of these young girls.
Facing overwhelming evidence, his lawyers strike a deal, and Nassar pleads guilty to possession of child pornography and later to 10 counts of criminal sexual conduct. His medical license revoked as well. But most of America would learn about his despicable behavior with this social media post by Michaela Maroney.
She said she, too, was one of the victims of Dr. Larry Nassar. And what made this incredible is so many of us remembered Michaela Maroney from the Olympics, the woman with that classic smirk that even President Obama copied.
And the woman whose athletic prowess helped vault Team USA to gold in 2012. But shockingly, behind the scenes,
she mentioned that Dr. Larry Nassar abused her during one of these treatments while she was right there at the Olympics in London.
Michaela alleges he assaulted her at the World Championships as well. Look at these pictures of Dr. Nassar massaging her leg. Soon, some of her teammates, part of the Fierce Five, said, "Me too." Gabby Douglas, Allie Raisman.
I'm so angry that after realizing that we were abused, they let him continue to molest other gymnasts.
Like Simone Biles, the young girl who dazzled the world in Rio, tweeting this month, "I too am one of the many survivors who was sexually abused by Larry Nassar." Next, how did Dr. Larry Nassar get away with sexual assault for decades?
If USA Gymnastics had simply picked up the phone and called the police, he would not have been able to molest for another year.
Stay with us.
I was told it was medical treatment, so who was I to question that? I was a 17-year-old girl. He reassured me it was fine, what he was doing is okay. And he told my mom the exact same thing, too.
I was very cognizant of the reality that one anonymous voice would never be enough, because Larry was backed by two very powerful institutions.
And maybe me coming forward and speaking was going to ruin a good doctor's reputation. These are the rationalizations that you have going through your mind.
Michigan State University is a renowned sports mecca. Its Spartans winning national championships with its acclaimed football and basketball programs. But the East Lansing-based school also has a reputation as a premier destination for elite gymnasts from around the country.
It is known as being a powerhouse place for the treatment and care of gymnasts.
So how was it possible that Dr. Larry Nassar at the prestigious Michigan State Sports Medicine Clinic, the so-called God Doctor for USA Gymnastics, could get away with what he did for so many years? In 1997, 16-year-old Larissa Boyce was training with the Michigan State Youth Gymnastics Program under MSU gymnastics coach Kathy Klages. It was a dream come true. That was until Dr. Larry Nassar got his hands on her. Larissa says she reported the abuse to Coach Kathy Klages.
She picked up a piece of paper and said, I could file this, but there's going to be very serious consequences for both you and Dr. Nassar.
What is that supposed to mean? Was that a threat?
I perceived it as, I would be embarrassed and the shame of that type of accusation. And, she didn't even tell my parents. The person she did tell was Larry Nassar.
When you saw Larry next, what happened?
I remember he came in the office and closed the door, sat on his chair, and he reassured me that it was a medical treatment, that it was to help me, and I said, I am so sorry. It was a big misunderstanding, and it's all my fault.
You apologize?
Mm-hmm. I hopped back up on the table, and he continued to abuse me.
And it wasn't the only time a gymnast says she reported Nassar to Kathy Klages at Michigan State. Remember Lindsay Lemke? Her mom says she called Coach Klages in a panic nearly 20 years after Larissa Boyce complained.
I called Kathy that night, and I told her, I said, Kathy, he did it to Lindsay too. And I go, but, we're really upset about this, and I think we need to speak to the authorities tomorrow. And she said, this is a legal medical procedure, Christy. So she knew that this had been going on. And that was it. There was no support, nothing.
She came into practice one day and said, I have this card that we got for Larry. You don't have to sign if you don't want to, but I think it would be great of you guys if you could let him know that we're thinking of him and praying for him.
Really?
Yes.
Why did Kathy support Larry so wholeheartedly?
They had been friends since the 90s.
Kathy Klages did not respond to our repeated requests for an interview, but our colleagues from ESPN's Outside the Lines caught up with recently.
Kathy, my name's John. I'm with ESPN. Can I ask a couple questions? Well, a couple women have told us that they spoke with you in 1997 and told you that Nassar digitally traded them.
Sorry.
Minstate would eventually suspend Kathy Klages, and she announced retirement the next day, saying if she had doubts about Nassar, she would have read immediately to protect her gymnasts. But Larissa and Lindsay and other gymnasts we spoke with allege in lawsuits that there were many others who failed to protect them from Nassar and turned a blind eye to the abuse.
There were institutions that allowed this to happen. The culture of abuse in gymnastics that allowed this to happen.
But what are all these coaches and what's the Gymnastics Federation getting out of this?
Because I think Larry was willing to let these girls practice no matter what their injuries were, and that's what coaches wanted.
Then, a possible turning point. In 2014, a young woman complained about Dr. Nassar, and Michigan State launched a formal investigation.
But there was a problem. Some of the witnesses were close to Nassar, including one of his proteges, which is just unbelievable.
Nassar then returned to work at Michigan State for another 2 years. ESPN reported that over the 2 years, Nassar assaulted at least a dozen young women who have since gone to police. But where was USA Gymnastics in all of this? At least one Olympic-level coach, John Geddert, is alleged in a lawsuit to have ignored a complaint from an athlete's family in 1998. Geddert led the 2012 women's Olympic team in London to gold and also owned that Michigan Gymnastics club, Twist Stars.
If they wanted to be an elite gymnast or try to go to the Olympics, that was the gym to go to.
To me, John Geddert, as the owner of your gym, you should know what that doctor is doing to your athletes.
Geddert denies violating athlete protection policies, though his coaching privileges were suspended this week by USA Gymnastics, which had already severed ties with Dr. Nassar in 2015 over athletes' concerns. But it never Michigan State, so Nassar continued practice there for another year.
If USA Gymnastics had simply, in 2015, picked up the phone and called the Michigan State Police, he would not have been able to molest for another year.
USA Gymnastics, in a statement released this week, said USA Gymnastics supports an independent investigation.
It is absolutely the darkest stain in U.S. Olympic history. They cared more about medals than people. They cared more about the brand and making sure it was untarnished for their sponsors and for all those people cheering in the stands and watching on television.
So if somebody had listened to you, Larissa, most of these women here would never have been abused by that man. That must make your blood boil.
Yes, absolutely.
Next, searing testimony from the survivors.
Little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world.
And what would Nassar have to say for himself?
I felt amazing making my statement.
I've never felt more confident.
Completely relieved and empowered. Empowered.
Mr. Nassar, I am going to ask that you be seated in the witness stand for the convenience of the witnesses.
There is no way out for Larry Nassar. Sentenced to 60 years in a separate child pornography case, he's now back in court for sentencing after pleading guilty to criminal sexual conduct. But today, women from around the country begin to descend on this Michigan courtroom for a chance to be heard.
The little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world.
One after another, they step up and speak up.
I will educate my children about monsters like you and pray to God they will never experience pain like this. I feel like the life has literally been sucked out of me.
In a letter, Nassar complains to the court that listening to the victim impact statements is too hard. Tough luck, says the judge.
Spending 4 or 5 days listening to them is
significantly minor, considering the hours of pleasure you had at their expense and ruining their lives.
She could have said, let's look at the people who were victims in the charges that he pled guilty to and let them speak and maybe let their family members speak. But instead, she said anybody who was a victim of misconduct by him, you can speak. You can share your truth.
Take the time when you're ready.
And the compassionate judge allows them to speak for as long as they want.
You are a role model. You are a hero.
She's been our therapist.
Yeah.
When we've needed someone the most.
She's your therapist?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if we could have asked for a better judge. She was amazing.
Do you know in the military her nickname was Barracuda Aquilina?
Just for her listening, for her being there, I know that she has 100% what's best for us.
Originally scheduled for 4 days, the marathon sentencing continues for 7.
By the end, 156 women came forward. How dare you? What kind of a person has the audacity to sexually assault a child in front of their mother?
As these victim statements are televised, many victims from across the country are watching. Among them is Akemi Look in Utah.
I remember watching it and thinking, how are these women doing this?
The former gymnast understands what the women are going through. She is one of Nassar's victims, but the 31-year-old has chosen to close that chapter of her life.
When I wrote my victim impact statement and submitted it, I was like, this is it. I don't ever want to revisit this ever again in my life. I don't want people to associate my name with being a child sexual abuse victim.
But the more she watches,
you have pissed off the wrong army of women.
The more she realizes she must join the fight. She races to the court battling traffic and her emotions. It is a 1,700-mile struggle that ends to go south at the gate with a panic attack.
This policewoman came over and said, are you okay? Can I help you? And I told her that I don't think I can get on this flight right now. I really don't, but I know that I have to.
And so she was on the left flight out of town. As luck would have it, additional support services are provided by a Jack Russell Terrier named Maggie.
An emotional support dog in the second row with a young couple who was flying, and I said, can I sit down next to you? And I was crying, and they said, of course you can.
Akemi's journey gets her to Michigan just in time for sentencing day. As for Rachel Denhollander, her journey has come full circle. She is the last victim to take Nassar to task and was the first to file a police report and speak out against him. They call her the general of this army of survivors.
You have fashioned for yourself a prison that is far, far worse than any I could ever put you in. And I pity you for that.
He offers up a boilerplate apology that the women say moved no one.
There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred.
But another side of him emerges when the judge reads more from Nassar's letter of complaint to the court. Nassar feels he too is a victim.
The media convinced them that everything I did was wrong and bad. They feel I broke their trust. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
There is an audible gasp in the courtroom and a similar reaction when I talk to the women.
Hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn. It sounds like he still doesn't get it.
I don't feel like he does.
That set the stage for the judge's stinging response.
I wouldn't send my dogs to you, sir. I can't even guess how many vulnerable children and families you actually assaulted.
Judge Rosemary Aquilina, who claims not to be good with math, did an excellent job throwing around some pretty big numbers to make sure Nassar never hurts anyone ever again.
I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I've just signed your death warrant. Sir, you do not deserve to walk outside of a prison ever again.
The judge's sentence was met with applause. And moments after the judge has her say, Akemi has hers, inspired by the women around her.
They gave me courage. They gave me hope. That there can be change, and we need change. This needs to end here.
Show of hands, how many of you think justice still needs to be done? Next.
2020 continues with Sister Survivors.
They've described themselves as warriors, an army, a sisterhood.
So when are we all going to go on a vacation together?
Their bond formed through bravery. These women vow to meet every year on this date when justice was served. Something extraordinary happened in that courtroom this week because of you and the courage that you had to stand up and tell that man what he did to you. The judge called you sisters. Sister survivors. You are sister survivors.
This is the beginning of our fight. It really is. And not just with what's happened to us, but fighting for other victims of abuse.
It shouldn't take an army of women speaking in court for people to do something. It should take one person saying that this happened to them and then being believed and taken seriously.
This is way bigger than Larry Nassar. I'm so glad that he is where he belongs to be and will be there for the rest of his life, but that it's time to make change in USA Gymnastics to protect the children, the future of our sport. And change already begun at MSU, with the athletic director and president stepping down this week, which came as welcome news to some former Michigan athletes.
So knowing that this woman will no longer be a part of that because she aided and enabled somebody to cause so much harm to so many young girls and women, I feel like I'll be able to be proud to say go green again.
You will be believed, and you should speak. What I'd like to see moving forward is the United States Congress, which created the USOC in 1978, initiated a full investigation of Michigan State, of the USOC, and of USA Gymnastics. And if there was criminal behavior, they should be prosecuted.
And in Texas, law enforcement is investigating the famed Caroli Ranch Training Center, where so many women say Nassar abused them. What lies ahead for these young women is as varied as their stories.
To have these brave, incredible women who came forward and who weren't silent. To be with these people who gave me so much courage to shift my perspective from shame and guilt and powerlessness to how I am now, I guess, is using my voice and being the light.